Okay, today we're going to be subtracting mixed numbers, but we're going to have to be doing some regrouping. So today's title is called Regrouping to Subtract Mixed Numbers. And our TEK for today is TEKS 53K. So pause the video to take a minute to write your title down in your table of contents and at the top of your page. Okay, so let's think about this problem. Speaking in terms of eggs, I have 2 whole dozen of eggs and I want to subtract 3/12 from it. So on the side here, I have my 2 dozen represented minus 3/12 because we know there are 12 in a dozen. I want to take 3 of those eggs out. Well, how many would we have left? Well, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rewrite this problem, and we're going to have our 2 dozen here, but we're going to have to open one of those dozen so that we have enough to take the 3/12 out of. So we're going to open that 2 dozen, take out 3 of them right here, and that would give us 9 eggs left with 1 whole dozen still left. So you can see what we did was we took our 2 dozen and we renamed it as 1 whole and 1 whole. It's just that our whole looks funny. It looks like 12 12s. And then we're going to take 3/12 from it, and that leaves us 9/12 left. Okay, so let's use some numbers. So write this problem down. 2 minus 3/12. It's the same thing, same problem we just did. We're just going to look at it without the eggs and only use the numbers. Since we can't take 3/12 from nothing, we're going to have to rename this 2 wholes. We're going to have to go next door and borrow, just like we do when we're subtracting whole numbers. So I'm going to go next door and I'm going to take away 1 whole. And my 1 whole, I'm going to add it on this side. But I want my whole to look differently. Well, I want it to look like 12s. So 1 whole written with a denominator of 12 is 12/12. Do you agree that this is still 2 wholes? Yeah, it is still 2 wholes, but now I can subtract 3/12 from 12/12. And I get 9/12. And then my wholes, 1 whole minus nothing is 1. 1 whole and 9/12. When you're renaming fractions, there is an infinite or endless number of ways to write the number 1 whole. 3/3 is 1 whole, and 12/12 is 1 whole. If you think about it, so is 7/7, 9/9, 24/24. All of these are 1. Keep that in mind as we're rewriting and naming fractions in the next few problems. Okay, we're going to solve 4 minus 3/8. Go ahead and write this problem down in your journal. Pause the video so you have time to do so. Okay, we're asking ourselves, can we take 3/8 away from nothing? No, we're going to have to go next door and borrow. So I'm going to borrow a whole. And I'm going to take the whole that I got from here and I'm going to add it over here. I'm going to add it to what I have. Well, I have nothing there. So the whole that I'm borrowing, I want with a denominator of 8. So I'm going to use 8/8 as my whole. Now I should be able to solve. 8 minus 3 is 5/8. And 3 minus nothing is 3. I cannot simplify 5/8, so this is my final answer. Okay, let's write this problem down. I want you to pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, compare your answer with mine. Okay, let's move on to another. Here we have 6 1/3 minus 2 5/12. Let's write it vertically. Okay, let's see. Oh, well, first thing I noticed that I have two different denominators. So I'm still following the same steps I know to do when I add and subtract fractions, and I have to have an LCD, a least common denominator. So what would be my least common denominator between 3 and 12? Remember, if you don't know right off the bat, you always list the multiples of 3 and 12. And if I do that, I can see that 12 is going to be my least common denominator. Okay, step 2 is rename my fractions. I know that 3 times 4 is 12, so 1 times 4 will be 4. And these are already in 12, so I can leave it, 5 twelfths. Now step 3 is to solve. Well, can I take 5 away from 4? No, I'm going to have to regroup. I'm going to borrow a whole, and since I'm dealing with twelfths, I want my whole to be 12 twelfths. So I took a whole from here, and I'm adding it to my fraction that I have here. But I already have 4 twelfths. So now that I have the 4 twelfths, and I've borrowed 12 twelfths, how many twelfths do I have altogether? 16 twelfths. Now I can subtract 5. 16 twelfths minus 5 twelfths will be 11 twelfths. And 5 wholes minus 2 wholes is 3 wholes. I cannot simplify that, and that is my answer. Okay, let's try another. I'm going to write this vertically. And step 1 is find the least common denominator. I do not have the same denominators, so I'm going to have to rename them. I know my least common denominator of 3 and 6 is 6, so I'm going to use 6. Make sure you're writing this down in your journal. 1/6 is equal to 1/6. 2/3. Well, I know that 3 times 2 is 6, so 2 times 2 is going to be 4. Now my step 3 is solve. Well, I cannot take 4 away from 1, so I'm going to have to regroup. So I'm going to take a whole from my ones column, and I'm going to add it over here to my fractions column. Well, since I'm dealing with sixths, I want my whole to look like 6 sixths. And if I have 6 sixths here, I already had 1/6. That gives me a total of 7 sixths. Now I can subtract. 7 sixths minus 4 sixths is 3 sixths. 6 wholes minus 2 wholes is 4 wholes. But I can simplify this answer. My greatest common factor of 3 and 6 is 3. So if I divide 3 by 3, I get 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 4.5 is my final answer. Okay, pause the video and try to do this one on your own. Okay, I know first thing is that I do not have the same denominator, so I'm going to have to rename using my least common multiple, which is 20. You could use 40. You're just going to have to do some more simplifying at the end if you use 40. 4 times 5 is 20, so 1 times 5 is 5. 10 times 2 is 20, so 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, I know there is no way I can take 14 away from 5, so I'm going to have to regroup. And I want to use the whole 20 20ths. 5 plus 20 is 25 20ths. And I have an improper fraction here, but that's okay. That's given me plenty to take 14 away from. So when I subtract 25 minus 14, I'm going to get 11. My denominator is still 20, and my whole number is 1. I cannot simplify 11 20ths anymore, and so that is my final answer. Okay, I think you guys are moving on to your assignment that's in your packet.